Hello, everybody. This is Miss Peachy from WCA Biology B. Here we are in Unit 5, where you have your first portfolio for second semester. So there's a lot going on with this portfolio. So I'm glad you're watching this video because you're not going to be responsible for doing the portfolio as it is written in your lesson. So when you go to your course outline, you're going to notice that there's actually 5 different lessons that goes along with this portfolio. I will be dropping lessons 2, 3, and 4. And for the most part, I do want you just to kind of read through lesson 5, but you're not going to be doing the material that goes with lesson 5. You're just going to be doing what I'm going to show you in just a moment, okay? So the first thing this talks about is biodiversity, and essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing kind of the thing at the very bottom here. You're going to be doing a simulation where you are modeling natural selection, and you're going to be looking at a couple different traits, and you're going to be doing kind of a little simulation where you can kind of see what happens through multiple generations with those different traits in different environmental conditions. And that's what we're going to be doing. The lessons actually have you doing some research on some ways in which you can look at environmental problems and propose solutions to those environmental problems. And it's fairly intensive and takes kind of a long time. So I'm just going to modify this to make it a little bit easier for you guys, but also, just a bit more targeted and directed as well. The reason why I am leaving in place Biodiversity Portfolio 5, this particular lesson, is because this is where the Dropbox is located. So then you'll be able to submit your portfolio into this Dropbox. So I do not have to create a separate custom assessment for you. So under my video, you'll see a link to this worksheet. This is your natural selection simulation worksheet. You cannot type into this copy. This is my copy. So in order for you to use this, you have to make your own copy. So the first thing you're going to do is go to File and make a copy, which will enable you to type into it, to modify it, to be able to give me your answers. Alternatively, you can go to File and download this as a Microsoft Word file. Ultimately, you will have to download it as a Microsoft Word file because you can't upload a Google Doc into the Dropbox. So when you're all done modifying your copy, you can then go to File, download it as a Microsoft Word file. It doesn't matter if you have Word on your computer or not because you're not opening the file, you're just saving it as this file type. And then when you put it in the Dropbox, you're going to upload that docs file into the Dropbox. That way I can open it in Microsoft Word. So this is kind of a cool little lab simulation. You will be going to PhET, which is an amazing website. We are going to be doing the natural simulation sim here. So be clicking on this play button, and it's going to open up the sim. And we're going to follow the directions that kind of go along with the worksheet. Okay, so the first thing it says, click play and then click lab. Oops. So we're going to go to lab, and then you're going to open that one up. And it's going to look like this. And this should look very similar to what you see on the worksheet, which is kind of nice, the way these pictures are captured right in here. So then it says you're going to reset everything using the little reset button, and then click on teeth in the upper on the left under the dominant column to add a mutation. Click Add a Mate, and after 3 generations you have passed on the graph, click Pause to pause the simulation. So we can kind of see that here. I'm sorry, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. I'm going to reset everything. We're going to click on, what does it say here? Forgot. Click on the teeth on the left, it says. Under, I believe it said under the dominant column. to add a mutation, and then click add a mate. After 3 generations, pause it. Okay. So then add a mate, and then we watch the graph and see how it's going at the bottom. We are going to wait until we have 3 different generations. So now we're done with 1 generation. They've mated, had babies. Oh, how sweet. And then we wait for generation 2 to pass. And as soon as it reaches generation 3, we're going to hit the pause button here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pause this after generation 3. Man, when they say, you know, they're reproducing like rabbits, they're not kidding, are they? There's a lot of rabbits here. So then you're going to go on to answer these questions, kind of go along with this. Do take into consideration the questions. Sometimes there's more than one question being asked for each one of these, and it always does ask you to use evidence to support your answer. So that means you have to go to the simulator, whoops, man, and you have to look at the data. You're going to be looking at this data and you're going to be seeing how the numbers here kind of support your answer, right? And let's see here. Oh, okay, I see what we're doing here. So the dashed line is long teeth and the solid line is short teeth. Okay, so we're kind of seeing the difference between the different phenotypes here between long teeth and short teeth. If you take away the total, I think it's a little easier to see the different phenotypes. So I'm removing that total button just so that I can see the difference between short teeth and long teeth, because that's going to help me determine, you know, which phenotypes are the dominant, which phenotype is the more abundant, and that kind of stuff. Okay, and then you're going to predict what would happen to both populations of long teeth and short teeth rabbits if food became tough. What would happen to the proportion of long teeth to short teeth? Okay, so food became tough. Tough food. Tough meaning literally difficult to chew. So we're looking not at that it's difficult, as in it's hard to come by, but that it's actually kind of physically tough to eat. Okay, so then make your prediction, and then you're going to kind of see how that carries out. You're not going to reset this. We are not going to go back to no rabbits at this point. You're just going to click the tough food box and then click the play button to start the simulation. Okay, so then after you've waited those 7 generations, you are going to pause yet again, and you are going to kind of check the ratio of long teeth to regular tooth rabbits. And again, use evidence to support your claim. That's very important, making sure you're actually looking at the data and pulling out some information that gives support to what you think is happening. So if you think that it's more advantageous to have long teeth or short teeth, state that, but then give us examples as to why you believe that. Then you go on to part 2, and in part 2, you are testing a different trait. So now you're going to reset everything. So you're going to hit that reset button, and you're going to go back to a different trait. You're going to click on fur color, and you're going to click on recessive on the right, and then add a mate. And then we're going to do a little bit of repetition. You also are going to click wolves to make sure you have a predator. So, gotta get rid of that. It keeps tricking me. So we're resetting. We're going to click this as recessive. We are going to click on wolves as an environmental factor. You're going to add a mate. You're going to wait 3 generations, pause it, and then you're going to see um, white fur, brown fur. What's the difference? Again, I think if you unclick total, it makes it a little easier to see. You're going to kind of let this simulation run. Oh no, Yes, all of our bunnies have died. Let's see here. Oops, I clicked the wrong thing. That's what's going on. Let's reset this. Oh, sorry. Read this wrong. After 3 generations, you click on wolves. So we're going to let it run first for 3 generations. So no wolves yet. Let it run, add a mate. Let the simulation run for 3 generations without wolves. That's why our rabbits all died, poor guys. Once 3 generations have passed, then we pause and add wolves. So we're going to kind of let this play out. And again, once we reach that 3rd generation, we're going to pause it right there. Right? And now we're going to add wolves to this scenario. And then we're going to let it run for, as it says here, until it reaches 8 generations, and then you hit pause. And then you're going to answer these questions. How did the proportion of white bunnies to brown bunnies change after wolves were introduced to the environment? So that means that you're going to want to check and see what is the proportion right now. As you can see here, white fur is fairly dominant, and brown fur, there's basically hardly any of them at all, right? This is before wolves have been added. Now let's see what happens once we add the wolves. And then remember, this is a two-part question. What would it be a reasonable explanation for this change? Question 7, based on the evidence, what's the difference between a dominant trait, white fur, and a predominant trait? So what do we mean? If something is dominant, is that necessarily means it's predominant? Remember, predominant means it's the most common, right? So dominant means that that trait is going to always cover up or mask the recessive trait, the recessive allele. Predominant means it's the most common trait. So what is the difference between them, or what difference do you see? Again, do not reset. So we're going to continue here. Now you're going to click on snow. You're going to make it snowy. And you're going to click the play button to start it. And wait until we get to 12 generations before you pause the simulation. And you're going to see what effect the change in environmental conditions have on the rabbit population. Okay, so don't forget, evidence, evidence, evidence. Make sure you're always giving us evidence. And then finally, our conclusion is what factors, plural, determine whether or not a mutation will become a predominant trait. Remember, predominant, not dominant. Dominant is strictly whether or not, if you have that allele, you are going to express that trait, right? Predominant is most common. So wherever it says predominant, substitute most common in the environment. So once you've completed this, again, you are going to, if you've downloaded this as a Word document, just save it and attach it to the Dropbox. If you haven't, you are going to have to go to File, download as Microsoft Word, and then save it and attach it to the Dropbox. You will be Dropboxing this in Portfolio in Lesson 5 for this unit. So I would like you to read through this. I think it's an interesting read to read through, the solution of potentially using red algae as a food source for cattle. It's kind of an interesting read here. But basically, when you get to the end of this, you are going to have a Dropbox here, which does not look like it's open yet. Yep, it is not open yet, but you will have a Dropbox here where you will be able to include your there we go, at the assessment. You hit the assessment and then you can attach. You can attach your file right there. So it is open. It's just I always forget because I don't do a lot of Dropboxing in this new system. So yeah, you'll be attaching it right there in lesson 5. So kind of that's your change. It's a big one here for this portfolio, but I think it's definitely more user friendly. If you guys have questions, let me know. But that is what you guys need to do for your Unit 5 portfolio.